you want to know the difference between a multi-million dollar producing website and an amateur one that never gets the results that you want? The difference usually isn't massive. In fact, I'm betting that you have the skills right now to take your designs to the next level with a few simple changes. So today we're taking a look at 11 different website layouts made by pros versus beginners so that you can learn how to become a world-class designer. So first I'm going to show you an amateur layout, and then I'm going to show you a professional design to highlight the key differences and strategies that pros use to make their layouts really pop. And after we've looked at both sections, I'm going to give you my biggest takeaways to take your designs to the next level. And I have nothing but respect and love for these businesses and websites. I'm just bringing them up as case studies to illustrate how a great business could hurt itself with subpar design. So it's to illustrate the power and importance of design in the world of business and just for our souls too. So we're starting with the hero section, which is everything above the fold. Our first layout comes from Shades Mountain Print Shop, and as you look through these layouts, I want you to start thinking about the design choices they made, the problem that those design choices are trying to solve for, and how you could elevate their design. The first thing that stands out to me is just the awkward spacing of everything. The hero is split into 4 different sections, which is really just too busy to get one message across. The other thing I think is a problem is, okay, you guys make custom apparel, but I don't actually see anything custom in these images. It's just the actual brands that you're working with. It doesn't really build a great deal of trust. The stock images and basic blue coloring sort of add to that feeling, and overall it just doesn't really inspire me to work with them. Moving on to the professional design by Family Industries Live, I want you to think about the differences between this design and the one you just saw. What makes this hero section really stand out? Because the first thing to me, is you're seeing real visuals of real people at real events that they've worked with. You get the sense that these people are busy and that their designs sell really well. The layout is also a lot cleaner with the hero split into 2 sections, one textual and one visual. And finally, the animation and hectic motion really conveys that these guys understand what it feels like to be at live events. It's not a bunch of corporate models posing in perfect lighting. It's fast-paced, high-energy sales that really demonstrate these people can handle events of any size. So the big takeaway I have for you as designers is that you want to work with your clients to uncover the vision of the company, the vision of the website, so you can work your design magic to display that in a unique and interesting way. So next we're taking a look at 2 portfolio sections, and starting off with RGB Internet. Now, as you look at their portfolio, I want you to think about what seems off to you, what you could improve to make this design feel more real and to make their work feel more valuable. Because to me, the thing that stands out right away is every project looks exactly the same. It's presented using the same mock-up and the same text to describe each project. The designs look okay, but it doesn't really speak to the individuality of each project and the value that they've provided to their clients. Another thing that compounds this effect is that rigid grid structure of the layout. It feels very uniform, very cookie cutter, and it just doesn't give me a lot of hope as a visitor that they're not just using templates. Contrast that with this portfolio by Nong Nguyen and think about what she's done to break free of that rigid mold. For starters, everything is arranged in floating space that only loosely conforms to a grid at the edges. Second, you can immediately recognize that every single project she's worked on is ultra unique and tailor fit to the client's branding. I consider her to be, a consistent source of inspiration exactly because I know she puts an incredible amount of work into the presentation of her portfolio. As designers, first impressions matter. They're how you get second impressions. So when you go to build your own portfolio, keep in mind these ideas and think about how you can imbue creativity, personality, and individuality not only into your work, but also into the presentation of that work. So naturally, after looking at a portfolio, we want to take a look at some case studies, and this first section comes from Think Designs, and as you take a look at it, try to work out what's off about this design, what's missing. For me, really, the big thing is just a lack of confidence in the design itself. The visuals are off to one side. When you click, until you click, they're pretty small. But also a lack of support in the design. I don't really get to see why they made the choices they did. I don't get any insights into their creative process or really anything about the project itself. In fact, for a case study page, it really only talks about the company, the industry that they're in, so it's pretty sparse, and I don't really love these keywords at the bottom here. It almost looks like an automatically generated page, and you can tell a minimum amount of effort went into the actual presentation of the case study. On the complete other side of the spectrum is the professionally designed 7-Eleven case study by Raw Materials. What immediately stands out to you is the key difference between this case study page and the one you just saw? Well, for me personally, right off the bat, you can obviously tell a ton of custom work went into creating this design. The page was made specifically for 7-Eleven, but beyond that, you can also notice they're a lot prouder of the work that they're doing. The visuals are bold, the supporting text explains exactly what they're working on and the impact it had on the brand. You can really just tell 10 times the effort went into creating this case study, and the results speak for themselves. The big takeaway I have from studying this case study page versus the other one is that you should be proud of the work that you're presenting and treat the presentation of your work as if it's as important as the work itself, because for you and for your career, it is. Next, let's take a look at 2 benefits sections. Now, the benefits section is usually the most important part of your website, especially if you're working with software clients or e-commerce clients. And that's because they usually take up about 60 to 70% of the homepage, so nailing the benefits section is super important. So first, we're going to look at Clockify. And as we look through this page, just keep in mind some of the other principles you've already learned and think about what you would do differently on this page. It doesn't look terrible by any means, but what stands out to me right off the bat is that it's a little bit sparse. Much like the amateur case study page, there's not really a lot to go off of here. The other thing is that the copy next to the images all focus on different features, but not on the benefits of using those features. In fact, really, you just get the name of the feature at first. The subtitle is actually an explanation of the feature. That's something you usually want to avoid, especially when you're selling software. The other thing that stands out to me is, how basic the visuals are. They don't really correlate to the text. I don't know, is this supposed to be the calendar, the timer, the whole app? I really don't know. They're also pretty small static images that don't really convey what it's like to use the product or show me any real insight into how I would feel using the product. Contrast that with this benefits section by Cycle. Right off the bat, you may notice it's a lot more visually interesting with these animations that visually explain how their product works, and even though there's roughly the same amount of text, you get a much better sense of the problems that Cycle solves when it's laid out in this very visual, very interactive way. In fact, laying out the benefits section in this way gives you a lot more leeway, because I honestly don't think the writing is the best. It's still very features heavy, but I understand the main benefits quickly because of how good the visuals are. The last thing I want to point out, just because I'm such a huge fan of this, it's actually down here, is this cool highlighter effect where you put the buttons inside the paragraph to show off these different visuals on the right here. When you're designing a benefits section, this is just a general principle, especially in a competitive space like product management apps. You have to be able to stand out and be able to explain your solution from a 1,000-foot view. These guys probably have to deal with and try to sell product managers, developers, customer success teams, sometimes CEOs, CTOs. So the way to get more people on board quickly is done most effectively with great visual design, because it's, the 1,000-foot view. So the big takeaway I have is that when you're designing a benefit section, you want to be able to visually convey the main reasons why someone should use your product or work with you. You can use before and afters, case studies, animations like they do here, anything that visually shows visitors who you are, what you do, and why you should buy now. Next up, we have the all-important but often neglected FAQ section. Now, I know what you're thinking. How important is the FAQ section really? Isn't it sort of something you just slap together last minute? Isn't it basically just a hidden benefit section in disguise? But I want you to think about what else you could use it for and why it actually might be more important than you might think. For starters, one of my favorite copywriters, Rob Allen, said that if you're ever using the FAQ section to sell, you didn't write very good copy. You want to handle objections in the hero and benefits section, and it's the #1 mistake I see designers and copywriters making. Beyond that, it's not something designers usually pay a lot of attention to. Like this website, you can basically see it's just a bunch of plain text, but if you have an otherwise amazing design and any part of it looks like this, it's kind of like seeing backstage at Disney World. It would just ruin the magic. So how can we elevate this design and get a little bit more juice out of it for your clients? Well, this is what Drink Plank did, and notice right off the bat what's different. First of all, it's more fun, it's more energetic. The whole website has a really childlike, playful feel because they don't want to ruin their design with a bland FAQ. Do you know how I said earlier that an FAQ section is more than just a sales page? Well, they really do a great job of answering real questions people would really ask, but in a fun, interactive way. This probably saves their company a huge amount of time that they would otherwise have spent answering these questions. Tim Ferriss said that when he was running a supplement company, he spent 10 to 15 hours a week managing the business and about 60 hours doing customer service, which he completely eliminated with stuff like this. So the big takeaway I have is that when designing an FAQ section, or really just any part of your website, you want to put 100% into everything you do, because people will notice everything you do and people will visit every page that you design. And from a business perspective, it's always going to pay more to be upfront and honest. Next up, we're going to look at the features section. This is different from the benefits section, which is on the home page. This section usually gets its own page or is part of the use case page. It's also one of the most difficult sections to design because it's focused on explaining the specific details of how a product works. It also usually gets a lot less attention because it's not on the homepage. But if you can nail this section, it's really going to take your websites to the next level. So as you look through these two websites, think about what helps sell the product and what can actually make a sale harder. So starting off with Jitsi, actually, a great product, but with a subpar feature section. The first thing that stands out to me is this sort of uninspired gray corporate background with kind of generic writing that basically just says what it does, but not why you should care. As I start to scroll, I get a 40-second video that's from 2018. It's over 5 years old. Some basic boxes that talk about the benefits, but don't really show me anything. A features list that's literally just an HTML unordered list, and then a changed log. So it's kind of generic. It just feels like if I don't know about Jitsi, then it's not really going to convince me to start using it. And it feels way too short. Like I have to do my own research somewhere else if I want to learn more about them. Contrast that with Contrast. They're also a webinar platform, and notice right away how much more modern and less corporate this section looks. I like the cursor they have to support the text, the double layered visuals with a nice drop shadow effect that's featured throughout the page. As I scroll, I'm greeted by the features in these icon boxes and then this cool bento box style section that visually shows me how the platform works and all the different stuff that it's capable of, but in a really fun and playful way. You also notice how much more there is on this page as compared to the Jitsi page. They really want you to know everything that they can do for you, and the features page is the place to put that information. I also love that they sprinkle in some benefits right at the end, and then they have a really clear call to action. So the main takeaway I have from studying these two sections is that you can't just assume your visitors know how your product works, especially if it's something as complicated as Jitsi or Contrast. Take the time to hold their hands and walk them through it, because the conversion rates when you do are going to be way higher. Next up, we're looking at demo sections, one of the most important sections for software products and e-commerce stores. And if you can nail the demo section, you're like 80% of the way to the sale. So going into this with the knowledge that the demo is insanely important, think about ways that you can improve the demo we're seeing. So this first demo comes from Zenstack, and it's a video demo which we can check out the first 2 seconds of.
Zenstack is an open source full stack development toolkit.
Now, right off the bat, I have to say I think this design is a little basic. It's not bad. The copy focuses more on features than on benefits, but it's a little played out and kind of standard, kind of boilerplate. But getting into the actual demo itself, I don't want to watch the full video. Getting into the demo itself, it's kind of off-putting. It's an AI voice. It's a little bit tech-heavy. It's not interactive at all, and it just feels a little bit generic. When you're designing a demo, or really any section on this list, you want to imagine what the end user, what the visitor is going to be experiencing. So I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of this. So let's check out how a pro puts a demo together. This demo section comes from Tally, which is an online form builder. Right off the bat, you'll notice the demo is actually showcasing the product in use, and that's already a huge step up. It's also got a much cleaner, more modern design that puts my eyes at ease instead of jarring my senses. I also like the spacing and the fun illustrations, but the real magic is the interactive demo here. So I can click to create a form, and I can type in hello world, and when I press / I get access to the full range of features that Tally offers. And this is great not just from a design perspective, but also from a user experience perspective. I love when software companies let me use the product, let me try it before I decide to buy it. And when I go to publish it, that's when it asks me to sign up. So if you're building out a page for a software client or for your own software product, being able to demo right before actually being asked to sign up is going to dramatically elevate your design, and it's going to be really great from a user experience perspective. Now we're going to look at 2 different product sections. Now, product sections are probably the most important sections you'll design if you're working in e-commerce. So as we take a look through these websites, pick out the things that you think are having an adverse effect on the designs versus what you really think helps sell the product. We're starting off with Uni. They're a supplement company, and right away I think the 2 things that are kind of off-putting about this design is the stock image up here followed by a grainy picture of the supplement bottle that doesn't say Uni on it, so I don't even really know if it's their brand. brand. The text on the side also is just one paragraph. There's no information on the number of servings or sourcing or efficacy or really anything that would make me interested in buying this product. There also aren't any reviews, which isn't great. And as I scroll, I see another stock image followed by some information, but it's not really laid out in a professional way. It's just sort of a block of text. I'd like to know, how much vitamin D per pill, recommended serving size per day, that sort of thing. So I feel like if I clicked on an ad for this product, I'd probably leave pretty quickly unless I knew a whole lot more about the company and their reputation. Now let's compare that with the home wellness detox box. Now they're sold out right now, but notice right away how different this section is. You can tell it's a real photo of a real meal they've prepped. The layout is full width, it looks clean and professional, and as I scroll, I'm greeted by the benefits section. So this is what I wanted to see on the last website. I'm not going to buy something until I know a little bit more about the kind of results I'm going to get with this, and this does a great job of showing me. It's very benefit oriented, which is what you want to see on a product page. The two-side layout is very clean, and my eyes have a lot of room to rest in this design. As I scroll, I'm greeted with this full page kind of sub-hero section, which almost looks like it belongs in a magazine. Next, we move on to the features, which has this great broken up grid style to it. You get images of exactly what you get in order, and then finally a testimonial section. So this is leagues above the other page we just took a look at, and it really comes down to this beautiful spaced out modern presentation coupled with 10 times the information about the product, benefits, how it works, what you get, and of course the testimonial. So the biggest takeaway I have for you when you're designing product pages, especially to cold traffic, is that products don't sell themselves. As a designer, you're really the one to bridge that knowledge gap and walk visitors through how great the product is. That really comes down to transparency, how much you can show, and the beauty, how good of a design experience you can craft. Next up is the classic comparison page. This is where you show off how you stack up against your competitors, and it's also a big area where a lot of designers are likely to mess up for a few different reasons. So as we're taking a look through this page by Paperform, I want you to think of ways you could potentially improve their design. First off, you could tell it's clearly basically a blog post. It's optimized more for SEO than for human consumption, and that can detract a lot from the credibility you might have built up by someone who is already leaning towards your product. I do like that they have a comparison table, although the yellowish color that they've used for the yes makes me feel like they don't actually have that feature, which is a little bit odd. It's also not super clear or easy to tell which row matches which benefit because there's no borders, and it's also not easy to tell which one of them is their product. Usually the column that features your product has a different color background or larger fonts, / bolder fonts, but it really does feel like they're competitors are also great companies, and maybe I should, go buy from them. So the way this page is laid out isn't particularly human friendly, and the actual comparison section doesn't do a great job of selling me on why I should use them instead of someone else. Contrast that with Miele. It's an air purifier, and right away we can see a pretty bold statement that Miele solves 10 big problems with air purifiers. Why do you think they stated it like this as opposed to what Paperform did? Well, I think the reason is because if you're in the market for an air purifier and you haven't already bought one, it's probably because you think they're pretty useless. And if you have bought one already and you're looking for a new one, it's probably because it has some issues. So this immediately builds curiosity and makes me want to learn more from them. Then they implement everything we've been talking about so far. They've got great headings that speak to the problems and suspicions inside the visitor's mind. They've got visual representations of how they solve those problems, then position Miele as the perfect solution to something their customers have already struggled with in the past. This is what you want to be doing on a comparison page. I love the big bold visuals, I love the unwavering language, and a simple clear call to action at the end, which I just want to get to real quick. Yeah, simple, clear call to action at the end. The biggest takeaway I have from Miele is that now is not the time to mince words. On a comparison page, it's not the time to be a fence sitter and talk about how great both sides are. You're designing a website for a client or yourself. You are trying to sell something, so sell it. Don't be afraid to say that your product is great if you really believe that it is. Next, we're going to take a look at two different testimonial sections because a lackluster testimonial section can massively diminish the social proof of your website, and vice versa, an amazing one can add a huge amount of credibility. So as we're taking a look at these two sections, keep that in mind and think about the differences between these two websites and what you can do in your own work to take it to the next level. Starting off with Ascent Law Firm, here's their testimonial page. And the first thing that really stands out to me is that it's kind of all over the place. There's a link to a tweet at the top, a few handwritten notes, a video here at the bottom, and then a bunch of text testimonials. So these guys are, obviously good lawyers, but I just don't think they're putting their best foot forward here. I actually have to say I do like the idea of a handwritten testimonial. It makes it feel more real, but they're a little bit hard to read on this page. The other thing that compounds that effect and stands out to me is that it feels a little bit cramped. You've got this section to the right, which takes up like half the page, which I think could be interspersed between the testimonials instead of off to one side the way it is. But the biggest thing really is the lack of intentionality. It doesn't really feel like someone built this page or designed this page. It looks like they took a template and uploaded some images and linked some tweets, so that's why it all feels sort of disjointed. Contrast that with the simple yet beautiful testimonial section by Ahrefs. It's organized in a clean way. It takes up the full width of the page, so you know it's important. Every testimonial has a quote, title, and most importantly, a clickable link, so you know it's legit. The other thing I love about this section is that they've split it up into different categories based on who's most likely to buy. So it's a double whammy. It's like not only do people like us, but people like you like us. So it's super simple, but it's super elegant. And the main takeaway I have from studying these two websites is how you present your testimonials have a huge impact on the credibility that you build with the visitor. The more important you make them on your site, the more impactful it will be, and the better you can segment your testimonials by customer persona, the more believable they'll be. Finally, we have the Contact Us section, and we're going to take a look at two marketing agencies that take two different approaches to the contact section, and you'll see how a few key changes really elevate the design. And if you're a designer, this is probably the most important section for you to study, besides the hero, because it's more than likely going to be your call to action. So think about how you could implement some of these principles into your own portfolio to take your designs to the next level. Starting off with Carolina Web Design, this is their contact form, and you'll notice right off the bat that it's a little bit generic. The labels are also both on top of and underneath the contact form, which is a little bit weird. They do have their full address and options to call or email directly, which I think is nice, but overall the design doesn't really inspire a huge amount of confidence. I mean, this is the one and only call to action the design agency really has, and cutting corners here is a little bit like slowing down right before you reach the finish line. If you're not careful, you could get passed by somebody who's putting in full effort all the way through. So now we're going to take a look at Crush Editorial, and you notice right away how much cleaner and more impressive this design looks and feels. I like that the form labels are part of the copy, so it feels natural and like you're being cooperative when you fill them out. It's creative, it's interactive, and I also like that they've asked for the company you work for. Sometimes software companies do this. They ask you for your work email because they only want to work with other businesses, so it's a great way to pre-qualify your leads and work with higher quality clients. So the big takeaway you can get from studying these designs is that you've spent the entire rest of your time trying to sell the visitor on why they should work with you. So it's important not to drop the ball at the last yard. If you're a designer that specializes in a certain kind of look and feel, and the rest of your website follows that design principle, you don't want to put some generic call to action right at the end. So I hope this video inspired you and will give you some ideas to elevate your designs in the future. If you want some more inspiration and insights into how to make $1 million design portfolio, I definitely think you should check this video out. It breaks down $5 million design portfolios from some of the top designers in the entire world, and I really think you'll enjoy it.